We are gathered here today to talk about what is currently selling on eBay and Poshmark, and I had some pretty good sales over the last month or so that I am very excited to share with you. But before we hop in, there are two things I need to take care of. The first is to open up my can of Olipop, which is pretty much the best drink ever. The second thing I need to do is tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is PrimeLister. If you've been around for a little while, you've probably heard me talk about PrimeLister at some point because I've been using it for the better part of the last 3 years. It's basically a software that automates your tasks on Poshmark. So Poshmark is kind of a high maintenance app that you need to share your items so they go to the top of search, honestly send out offers if you want to make sales, and relist your items every 60 plus days. So PrimeLister really just automates everything for you, and then you don't have to actually just go in and click share every listing or manually send out offers to likers. You can just set that up and PrimeLister will do that for you. And I actually took a look at all the sales that I'm about to share in today's video, and every single item that I sold on Poshmark in this roundup was because of an offer, whether I sent the buyer an offer, well, PrimeLister sent the buyer an offer, or the buyer sent me an offer. But in either of those cases, I would not have had my items be at the top of search for somebody to find it on Poshmark, or send out offers automatically and have the buyer accept it automatically while I am at work or running errands or thrifting or whatever I'm doing. So it's really nice to have everything just automatically happening for you, and it just gives you the best chance to make the most sales without actually having to manually do all those tasks. So I cannot recommend trying it out enough if you haven't already. And PrimeLister does offer a 7-day free trial. You can use my link in the description box, see if you like it, and go from there. And if you sign up, you will get an extra discount off your first month. So please let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to answer in the comments. All right, hopping into today's video. All right, starting off with a really strong one. So this was actually a bundle sale. The buyer had bundled 2 items together, and then I sent them an offer and they accepted it. So the first item in the bundle was this Coach women's trench coat, and the second item was this Tory Sport, which is Tory Burch's athletic line tank top. So together those items were 140 bucks, and then I sent them a $100 offer. Great sale, and I actually didn't thrift those items that long ago, so both of those moved pretty quickly, which I was very pleased with. Next up was this Lululemon Both Ways sports bra. This one actually sold on eBay, and I had it listed at $30, and then it sold for $24, and that left me with $19.96 in profit. So that was a good one. Here's a little tip for anybody newer to reselling. If you look on the Lululemon size dot, you'll see the code right around the number. That's actually only on the semi more recent styles. At least like the really old Lululemon items does not have a number code, but the newer items, or within the last like several years at least, have a code that you can look up and then find the exact style name. So that's a really helpful trick that you can use if you don't know what the style is on a Lululemon item. But when it comes to Lululemon sports bras, I really like to grab those at the Goodwill outlet, and they usually will flip for $20 to $30 or so. So it's a really good item that's pretty small, lightweight, doesn't cost a lot, but can still leave you with a really good profit once it does sell. Next is this Theory wool sheath mini dress. And Theory is a brand I have had pretty good luck selling, but it can sit for quite a while. And I don't necessarily think this one sold, or that this one took too long to sell, 188 days, nothing terrible. I've definitely had it sit longer than that, but in my experience, it's not a fast mover. So it's a brand that I am pretty particular with, and I just kind of keep my expectations pretty low when it comes to this brand. The next up is this pair of Smartwool men's shorts, and this is pretty different than typical Smartwool items that I find. I usually find sweaters, base layers, leggings, quarter zips, things like that. So it's kind of cool to find something a little bit different by this brand, and it's of course a good time of year to get a pair of men's like athletic chino shorts listed. So I had these listed at $32, and then I had sent out 20% off offers, I believe, on eBay. Took just under 2 months to sell and left me with $18.47 in profit. And this is a brand that I truly love to find and to flip. It's a really great brand. Typically does not take that long to sell as long as it's in decently good condition. The next up is this Coach women's long sleeve top. I used embellished spell out and logo for some keywords. This is a brand that you may expect really just their bags to do well, but I've had very good luck selling Coach shoes and apparel. So it's a brand that if I find it, especially at the Goodwill outlet, of course for just a couple dollars and it's in good condition, there is no question I'm gonna pick it up and flip it online. Typically does do pretty well. So this one I had listed at $32 and it sold on eBay for $24. Took just over a month, so nice and fast. Then one of my very favorite bread and butter brands, this is Cool. It's a pair of women's capri pants. I used hiking and outdoor. So here is that Cool tag. This one sold for $20 on Poshmark. Had it listed at $25. PrimeLister sent out 20% off offers. Somebody accepted that. That left me with $13.87, and again, took just over a month for that to sell. Then this is a particular item from Victoria's Secret that definitely does well. This is like more of a vintage kind of a style. This is the My Favorite Sweats. It has the spell out on the butt, which I think is actually pretty popular, very Y2K. And so these sold pretty quickly for 19 bucks. And that left me with $13.07. Took under a month, so very quick. And if you do come across these and you're not paying too much, definitely look into them, see, and I mean, inspect them, make sure they're in good condition, of course. But assuming they are, these can be a pretty quick flip. Nothing crazy high profitable, but you know, if you're only spending $1 to $3 on them, they're, you know, selling within a month, that's not bad. So this is a item that I think is doing very well right now. Really, any Y2K pieces right now are doing quite well. So this is a good one to be on the lookout for. Next up is this Sundry long sleeve shirt tail dress. I used gauze as a keyword. Here's that Sundry tag. And this ended up selling for $40. I did have this listed for quite a while. I know that this took quite a long time to sell, but eventually it did sell. I had it listed at $72 and then it sold for $40. Someone sent me that offer. I accepted it, left me with $29.92 in profit, and took exactly 365 days to sell. What are the chances that it would take exactly 1 year from the day I listed it to the day I sold it? Exactly 1 year. Kind of funny, but not the longest item I have had, but a year is kind of a long time. I would prefer not to sit on an item for a full year before it sells. But this one ultimately did leave me with a really strong profit in the end. So, you know, it's like I did all the work a year ago, and then once it sold, all I had to do was ship it. Really not that bad. So, doesn't mean I'll pass on this brand moving forward, but I certainly will be particular with the items I pick up and just kind of know in the back of my mind that it might take a little while to sell. All right, the next is this pair of Lululemon Ready to Rulu high-rise jogger sweatpants. These sold for $32 on Poshmark, and Lululemon just, I don't know, it's like one of those brands that I will just always be happy to spot, especially in the bins, paying a couple dollars. I can expect that it'll do well because it is a very popular brand and it is kind of an expensive brand. Ellie, it's okay. Come here. Can you sit? Good girl. It's a good girl. You can hang out. So these sold for $32 and that left me with $24.09 in profit. It took 217 days to sell. Some Lulu pieces do sell really fast. Some take a bit. I don't think don't quote me on this, but I really don't think I've had an item sit for like a year plus when it comes to Lululemon. It typically does move within, you know, a few months or up to maybe like 6 to 8 months, but yeah, it's not always fast, but I really don't think I've had items sit for a really, really long time. Please let me know if you still get excited to come across Lululemon, even though it's, you know, not necessarily hard to come by, or maybe it is where you thrift. I typically come across it pretty regularly, not every time I go thrifting, but just about, I would say, I come across at least one Lululemon item when I go thrifting. So it's a brand that is definitely out there, and I do like to pick it up without a doubt. Next is this pair of Anthropologie packable parachute pants, and this is just a very on-trend style, and so that's why I was super happy to pick this up in the bins. On top of the fact that I was happy to pick up this item, great brand, great style, I was happy that they were a size extra large, because a lot of times with Free People, Anthropologie, Urban Outfitters, I'm finding extra smalls and smalls, and it is really great to be able to offer mediums, larges, extra larges, and I think that could have contributed to it selling so quickly because you know, there aren't necessarily as many items out there in that size, or like it's not as saturated as a size extra small. That took about a month and a half to sell, left me with $36.28 in profit. Really great sale there. And this again was from an offer to liker situation on Poshmark, and the buyer accepted that. I was very happy to move it out and love to come across great styles of, you know, a good brand. So that resulted in a really good sale. Then this next item, I actually remember in a video at least 6 months back talking about how quickly this item sold, and it was the Madewell Perfect Vintage Jeans, and this style was selling like really fast at that time. And I remember saying in the video, that doesn't mean it'll always sell that fast just because it's selling fast right now. And that couldn't be more true, because these, I don't think they took a long time, but certainly not a super fast flip. 105 days, so like, I don't know, 3.5 months. Not terribly long. I'm still very happy with that, but I remember these selling within like a week every time I listed them for a while. So not quite the case anymore. Still sold in a pretty decent time and sold for 20 bucks. Not too bad at all. Again, Madewell used to sell for a good amount more as far as their denim went, but I listed these at 35, sold them for 20, was left with 12.24, and like I said, took about 3.5 months for those to sell. This brand, on the other hand, is selling quite well, and it's not necessarily selling super fast every time I list it, but it is selling for a pretty good price and relatively quickly. So it's a brand I am certainly happy to find when I'm out thrifting, and it is On. So this is a pair of On running shorts. They sold for $28 on Poshmark, and that left me with $20.28. Took 49 days for those to sell, so not too bad at all. These definitely sat for a tiny bit longer than the last On item I sold, which was a shirt. So that sold pretty quickly. These took a little bit longer, but still pretty quick. And I actually just got a pair of On shorts from the bins my last trip that are new with tags. They did have one small flaw, but they're new with tags, and I'm hoping they do pretty well. So we shall see. This next item, let me know if you've ever heard of this brand before. I think this is my first time picking this up, but it's called APC, and it's a women's button-up tank top. I used minimalist, classic, and neutral to help get this item seen. This sold for $35 on Poshmark, and that left me with $26.20 in profit. It took 127 days. Great brand to know and to be on the lookout for, APC. They've got some pretty high quality and just good style, trendy items that are made very well, just like I said, higher quality and just really cute. I actually tried this on because I kind of wanted to keep it, and it just wasn't quite the right fit, so I didn't keep it, but I really love it a lot and wish I was like obsessed with how it looked on me, because I think it's so cute. So hopefully the buyer loved this one, and definitely be on the lookout for this brand when you're out thrifting. Next up is this pair of J. Jill women's linen shorts. These sold for $18. This is a brand that I will pick up if it's the right style, good condition, preferably good or higher quality materials like linen. And this one had a definite seasonality factor where I found it like at the very beginning of summer or maybe even spring, and just knew that it would sell sometime during the summer if I didn't price it too high. So this pair sold for $18. I originally listed those at $29, sold them for $18, was left with $12.31 in profit, but they took only 39 days, so I would call that a pretty fast flip. And this is one of those unassuming brands that I wouldn't recommend picking up every single item you find, unless that is something you want to do, go for it. But I certainly am picky when it comes to this brand, and only like to get items that I have a pretty high confidence will sell well and quickly and all that. So this checks some boxes: good style, good time of year, good higher quality materials, low cost of good, and priced it just right. So that ended up being a really good sale, but I have passed on way more J. Jill items than I have picked up. And this is a good brand to know. This was actually a new to me brand that I looked up when I found this item because it looked really high quality, and I was like, I need to know more. Is this actually something good? So it's called Allegri, and it's a nylon trench coat, rain jacket. I used lightweight and city, or I think it was called the city trench coat maybe. But this I had listed at $125 and ended up selling on eBay for $85. So somebody sent me that offer. I accepted it, and that left me with $69.75. It took 131 days, but this is a brand that I am excited to find again at some point. And let me know if you've ever found this brand, if you've heard of this brand before. Tell me what you know about this brand. Definitely looks pretty high quality and just a really good classic piece for this one. So definitely excited to find that one again and see how it does. Then I did say this was one of my bread and butters. Another cool item. This is a cool men's hiking shirt. This one sold for $17 and it had this really cool striped print. It was like almost a textured stripe pattern on it. So I really like this one. Sold for $17 on Poshmark. That left me with $11.60. It took 202 days to sell. Then another pair of Lulu pants. This is the Dance Studio mid-rise pants. These ones sold for $50 on Poshmark. Really great sale. I listed them at $85 and then I accepted that $50 offer happily, and it took under 3 months, 84 days. Left me with $38.25 in profit. And when I say profit, that is the total take home for me after platform fees, shipping costs, and my cost of good, but before taxes. So that left me with $38.25. Really great profit. I bought that for $1.75 in the bins. And you know, I always check comps and see what the market's looking like. And when I go to price my items, I do like to see what other people have them listed at, what they've sold at recently. I also take into account what the original retail price was and just do a little bit of research before I choose my price. But then with that being said, I also take into account that offers really are a very big way of how you make sales on Poshmark and eBay. So I will price it a little higher than I'm kind of expecting it to sell, knowing that I'll sell it via an offer and that it'll sell for less than I originally priced it at. So that's kind of just my process. I think a lot of people have a similar approach where you know, look at the market value and then price accordingly, but also take into account that it probably will sell at a slightly lower price than what you price it at because of offers. So anyway, that one did end up selling for $50. Great sale, and always happy to come across some Lululemon pants. And let's see, so this is an example of a Lululemon size dot that does not have the code around the outside, so I wouldn't have been able to look up this exact style, probably just Google reverse image it and went from there. Then next is this marine layer pair of men's pants. And these, I actually listed these at $60 on eBay and then accepted a pretty steep offer of 50% off. And they sold for $30, leaving me with $21.86, but they took 216 days, so they were sitting for a little bit. And when I got a $30 offer, I said, sure thing, move it out and reinvest that money in some better inventory. Next up is this Tailor Stitch men's button-down shirt. And here is that Tailor Stitch brand tag. This is a really good brand to know, and it's one I actually just shared in my most recent thrift haul. Not this item, it was a different Tailor Stitch item, but it's a good brand to find, and I really don't find it very often. I've only found it a couple times. So when I do see that tag, I am very happy. I listed this at $55, sold it for $30, and it took 49 days, left me with $21.91 in profit. Let me know if you have found and sold Tailor Stitch before and what your experience is. All right, and then what do you know? Another cool item. This is a cool alpaca fleece jacket, and this was kind of an older cool item. It seemed a little bit pre-loved, but still in decent condition. Sold it for $18. That left me with $12.55. That one took a long ass time. It took 493 days to sell. That is longer than I think anybody wants to be sitting on an item. So that isn't great, of course. I think that Cool is definitely a good brand, but yeah, I can't tell you that it sells fast every time or anything, because that would just not be true. Sometimes it takes a long time. But you know, when I buy it at the bins and flip it for 18 bucks, still left with a profit. So maybe I do just need to be a little bit more picky when it comes to Cool and not pick up like any Cool item I find in decent condition, but I don't know. All right, then just a couple more to go here. So this is a J. Crew linen cocktail dress, and this sold for $25. It's a pretty old J. Crew item. Can't remember the exact year, but just the tag, the look of this brand tag, it's all definitely a little bit older, probably at least 20 2015, 16, maybe even like 2014. Anyways, this one sold on Poshmark. I had it listed at 38 and it sold for 25, left me with 17.58 and took 111 days for this to sell. It was a perfect time of year to find it. And I tried to, you know, market it as a cocktail dress. I think that's something people really look up when they're Googling, you know, for whatever reason they need a cocktail dress. That's like a very common thing to type in on Google, and then eBay and Poshmark listings typically will come up. So that very well could have helped this sell. It's also 100% linen. It's also summer. So a lot working for this item to sell, but took about 4 months or so. All right, and then this last item I shared just in my very most recent haul, and it sold yesterday, the very same day I listed it. So we had a 0-day turnaround time on this, which couldn't love more. And this is a Patagonia Kids Nano Puff jacket. Sold for $35 on Poshmark. I listed it at 50 bucks, accepted that $35 offer in a heartbeat, and was left with 26.24. Took 0 days to sell. We love to see it. But that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know how your summer is going. Okay, it's officially Leo season. Let me know if you're a Leo, but let me know how your summer is going, and if you have done anything fun or if you have anything you're looking forward to, let me know. But otherwise, I hope you're doing very well. I hope you have a very good rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.